In this video we will show you two places that we have visited and loved, the first being the archaeological remains of Medina Azahara and the second the famous Almodovar Castle, famous for being a filming location for Game of Thrones. Medina Azahara is one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites in Spain and a powerful symbol of the splendor of Islamic Al-Andalus. Located just a few kilometers west of Cordoba, this vast palace city was built in the 10th century during the height of the Umayyad Caliphate and served as the political and ceremonial heart of one of the most sophisticated civilizations in medieval Europe. The city was ordered to be constructed in the year 936 by the Caliph Abd al-Rahman III after he declared himself caliph, separating politically and religiously from the Abbasid rulers in Baghdad. Medina Azahara was not just a residence but a monumental statement of power, prestige, and cultural brilliance. Built at the foot of the Sierra Morena hills, the complex was designed on a series of terraces that descended toward the Guadalquivir Valley, offering spectacular views of the surrounding landscape and of Cordoba itself, which at that time was one of the largest and most important cities in the world. The city was carefully planned and divided into three main levels. The highest terrace housed the caliph's private palace and the administrative buildings where the government of the caliphate operated. The middle level contained the residences of high officials, courtyards, and magnificent reception halls. The lowest terrace was occupied by soldiers, servants, gardens, mosques, workshops, and the general population who supported the functioning of the palace city. One of the most impressive spaces discovered at Medina Azahara is the grand ceremonial hall known as the Salon Rico, or Rich Hall. This extraordinary room was where ambassadors from across the Mediterranean world were received. Delegations from Christian kingdoms, North Africa, and even Byzantium would enter this dazzling chamber decorated with finely carved marble panels, intricate vegetal designs, and brilliant architectural symmetry. The hall reflected the immense wealth and refinement of the caliphate, demonstrating that Cordoba rivaled the greatest capitals of the medieval world. The construction of Medina Azahara required enormous resources and labor. Historical sources suggest that thousands of workers, artisans, and architects participated in its building. Marble columns were brought from distant parts of the Mediterranean, and precious materials were used throughout the palaces and gardens. Water channels, fountains, and landscaped courtyards created a luxurious environment intended to symbolize paradise on earth, a common theme in Islamic palace architecture. Despite its magnificence, Medina Azahara had a surprisingly short life. Around the year 1010, during a period of civil war known as the Fitna of Al-Andalus, the palace city was attacked, looted, and largely destroyed. After the collapse of the Umayyad Caliphate, the site was abandoned and gradually buried beneath earth and vegetation. For centuries the ruins remained hidden, and many stones were taken by locals to build other structures in the region. Systematic archaeological excavations only began in the early 20th century. Since then, archaeologists have uncovered only a small portion of the original city, yet even this fraction reveals the immense scale and beauty of the complex. Streets, courtyards, mosques, baths, gardens, and palatial halls have been brought back to light, allowing visitors to imagine the grandeur that once defined this royal capital. In recognition of its historical importance, Medina Azahara was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2018. Today the site includes a modern museum that explains the history of the caliphate, the construction of the city, and the archaeological discoveries made there. Walking through the ruins, visitors can see columns rising again toward the sky, carved decorations that survived 1,000 years, and terraces that once hosted rulers, diplomats, and scholars during the Golden Age of Cordoba. Medina Azahara is more than an archaeological site, it is a window into a moment when Cordoba was a center of knowledge, diplomacy, art, and cultural exchange between the Islamic world and Europe. Visiting the ruins today allows travelers to step back into the 10th century and witness the remains of a city that once represented the power, sophistication, and vision of one of the greatest civilizations in medieval history. We went to the Cordova bus station to go to the town of Almodovar del Rio, where one of the best preserved medieval castles in Spain is located. Not far from the city of Cordoba, rising above the countryside and the wide valley of the Guadalquivir, stands the majestic Castillo de Almodovar del Rio. From a distance its powerful silhouette dominates the hilltop, a fortress of stone that seems to watch over the land just as it has done for more than 1,000 years. The origins of the castle go back to the early Middle Ages, when Muslim rulers built a defensive stronghold in the 8th century to protect the strategic route along the river. At that time Almodovar was known as Almodovar, meaning the round one, a name that referred to the shape of the hill where the fortress was built. Throughout the centuries of Al-Andalus, the castle grew in strength and importance, becoming part of the defensive network that guarded the powerful city of Cordoba. In 1240, during the Christian reconquest led by Ferdinand III of Castile, the fortress passed into Christian hands. From that moment it became a key military outpost protecting the region. Kings and noble families maintained and expanded its walls, towers, and battlements, turning it into one of the most impressive castles in Andalusia. What makes the castle especially remarkable today is how well it has been preserved. At the beginning of the 20th century, the fortress was in ruins until it was carefully restored by Rafael Desmaisier's wife Irina. Thanks to this restoration, visitors today can walk through its gates, climb its towers, and experience the feeling of stepping into a true medieval fortress. Inside the walls, narrow stone paths lead to several defensive towers, each with its own story. The Torre del Homenage rises proudly above the complex, offering spectacular views over the countryside, while other towers such as the Torre Quadrata and Torre Redonda reveal the military ingenuity of medieval architecture. Walking through the castle, you can almost imagine the footsteps of soldiers guarding the walls, the banners of noble houses waving in the wind, and the echo of centuries of history. The castle has also found a place in modern culture. Its dramatic appearance made it an ideal filming location for the famous television series Game of Thrones, where it was transformed into one of the castles of the Kingdom of Highgarden. This brought new international attention to the fortress, attracting visitors from all over the world who come to see both its history and its cinematic presence. But beyond television and tourism, the true magic of the castle lies in the atmosphere that surrounds it. Standing on its walls at sunset, with the golden light falling over the fields of Andalusia and the river winding through the valley, it is easy to feel connected to the many cultures that shaped this land. Muslim builders, Christian kings, medieval knights, and modern travelers have all passed through these gates, each leaving a small mark on the story of the fortress. Today, the Castle of Almodovar del Rio is not only a monument but a symbol of the long and fascinating history of this region. It reminds us that Andalusia has always been a meeting place of cultures, traditions, and stories that continue to live on in its landscapes and its stones. Visiting this castle is not just a trip to a historic site, it is a journey through centuries of history rising proudly above the Valley of Cordoba.